I thought he was going to announce that he was dropping out of the 2024 race. I mean, that's what everybody thought.
Some of the language in this report is just damning. You can't get around it. An elderly man with a poor memory. He's in the fight of his political life.
Found evidence that Joe Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after he left the
Putin knows, Xi knows, our allies know that Joe Biden, America's commander-in-chief, is in serious mental decline.
This is your president, folks, the commander-in-chief of the armed services, the man supposedly in charge of the nuclear football. How is this acceptable? Our nation is at risk every day that Joe Biden sits in the Oval Office. So if at all possible, what can Congress do about it? And can he, Joe, be held accountable for improperly handling
a current president who clearly mishandled classified documents? He likely committed a crime, but they didn't want to prosecute him because he's a well-meaning elderly man with a fading memory.
That is going to be on every Republican ad until the end of this campaign, while this report seems to say that he's not going to face criminal charges and that he did breach the handling requirements of classified documents from his time as vice president. This is a damning quote that will be a defining one for the end of the Biden presidency.
And you could sense the anger pouring out of him. He was emotional at times, visibly upset.
The White House is fielding questions about President Biden's news conference last night.
Now, if you saw it, you know he did not hold back his feelings about the special counsel's report, which looked into his handling of classified documents. The president really took issue, though, with the part that said he presented himself as, quote, an elderly man with a poor memory. He said his memory is fine and touted his track record as president.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president. I put this country back on its feet. I don't need his recommendation. It's totally
How bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad I let you speak. That's your
memory has gotten worse, Mr. President?
My memory is not good. My memory is fine.
Mr. President,
for months when you were asked about your age, you would respond with the words, watch me. Many American people have been watching, and they have expressed concerns about your age.
That is your judgment. That is your judgment. That is not the judgment of the press.
They express concerns about your mental acuity. They say that you are too old. Mr. President, in December, you told me that you believe there are many other Democrats who could defeat Donald Trump. So why does it have to be you now? What is your answer to that question?
Because I'm the most qualified person in this country.
You'll remember, these were the documents found at the Penn Biden Center in Washington, D.C., and also at the president's home in Delaware. Earlier today, the White House declined to assert executive privilege over any of this report, and that's why we have it in our hands now.
Now, there's a big but here. The but is there are no criminal charges being filed here. Special Counsel Rob Hur found that there should not be criminal charges, that even if department policy at the Department of Justice said you can't indict a sitting president, which Joe Biden is currently, and that is the department policy, they still wouldn't be bringing charges. The reason for that are many different mitigating factors, specifically pointing out that Joe Biden had a failing memory about some of these things. And even if he was willfully retaining and disclosing classified information, especially about Afghanistan, the Afghanistan military, foreign policy, as well as handwritten notebooks he kept from his vice presidency, even though he shared them at some point with a ghostwriter he was working with on a memoir, it was not enough to convince a jury that there was guilt on his mind or that he willfully wanted to keep these things in violation of the law.
We weren't investigating Joe Biden for mishandling classified documents because he was old and senile. We were investigating because we suspected that he had documents in there from China and Ukraine. Now, what the report came out and said, obviously it talked about his cognitive decline that we've all seen, but it also mentioned different emails and documents in there that did pertain to Ukraine and China. That's the whole basis of our investigation, to determine whether or not Joe Biden's compromised because of all the money his family's taken from those two adversarial countries.
So I think one of the things that came out, and it didn't really come out, it's just a 385-page document, but one of the things, and the White House had some flunky talking about how the report was wrong. One of the things that happened is that Biden talks to, I think, an author of a book that was being written or something to that effect, and he admits to having classified documents in his possession and in his home. Here's the question. Can you subpoena that testimony or whatever the interview was? We want to hear what Biden admits to on tape, and for some reason, it's now being held behind closed doors.
Absolutely. And we took steps today to start that process. Before you can issue a subpoena that will be that will hold up in court, you have to show a good faith effort to get what you're requesting. So we've sent our first letter. We'll probably send a second letter, and that'll be Jim Jordan and myself. Then we'll be in a position to issue the subpoena that will win in court. Look, this isn't over. The Democrats want to say it's over. It's not over. We need to know what exactly the transcripts say to know the level of mishandling of these classified documents, who he mishandled them with, what part his son was involved with this, if her even asked about his son. And we need to know specifically what documents were involved with Ukraine and China and all these other countries that have sent the Biden family tens of millions of dollars. I mean, this whole Biden investigation is the biggest political corruption scandal in my lifetime. It's all about public corruption. This family's been influence peddling. We believe they're on the take. This special counsel report showed that Joe Biden has not been truthful with the American people about these documents, and the documents are center to our investigation. So we're going to do everything we can to get the transcripts and to get the specific documents that were mishandled. And, you know, what's funny to me is the media was always crying foul. Why wouldn't Comer issue the transcripts of who he was deposing in the Biden investigation? We issued those transcripts within days of those depositions. You have to go over them, and both sides and their lawyers have to edit and make sure everything in there is correct. The media is not saying anything about demanding to turn over the transcripts of this interview because they know this is the interview from hell for Joe Biden. Whatever Joe Biden told her, he was having to talk and he was struggling and he couldn't remember anything and he was just flat out lying. So we're going to get those transcripts, and we took steps today to begin that process.
Got about a minute or so. So lost in all this because there's so much news. Yesterday was an amazingly huge, massive breaking news day. Tell us where we stand. Hunter Biden says he's willing to cooperate. Is he going to cooperate? Are you going to get your deposition behind closed doors or in public? Where does that stand?
Absolutely. I'm getting everything I wanted. We're going to depose Hunter Biden. It'll be at least an 8-hour deposition. We'll be able to ask him hundreds of questions. We've got tens of thousands of pages of bank documents with suspicious transfers between our adversarial countries and the Biden family. We want to know what those were for. We're also going to interview James Biden. So over the next 3 weeks, the House Oversight Committee is going to either interview or depose under oath Tony Bobulinski, James Biden, and Hunter Biden. So we've got a big...
It couldn't have played into Trump's hands better for so many reasons. Joe Biden has to claim on national television in primetime last night that he's competent, which means he should be able to stand trial, or he has to admit that he's not competent, and then Trump basically wins this thing slam dunk.